After a week of disappointment,
It feels like I got hit in the stomach.
and a week of disruption, we bring you a big mystery, movies, and lots of high drama. From big exits to talk of new arrivals, the week's top newsmakers and moments next on Week in Review.
Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of AARP Kansas City, RSM, Dave and Jamie Cummings, Bob and Marlise Gorley, the Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John H. Mize and Bank of America N.A. co-trustees, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick Haynes, and thank you for joining us on our weekly journey through the week's most impactful, confusing, and befuddling local stories. On that journey with us this week from KCUR News, Lisa Rodriguez, still tracking the Metro's top political news for Channel 9, Michael Mahoney, from the Call newspaper, Eric Wesson, and from the pages of your Kansas City Star, Dave Helling. I want to start with a mystery this week. I also have a question for you. What if the leaders in your city asked you to approve hundreds of millions of dollars in tax incentives to bring a new company to town, but they refuse to tell you what the name of the company is, even what kind of business they're in? They also refuse to tell you where in your city the business would be going. Would you say, let's do this, what the heck? Or would you tell them to take a hike? Well, it's not just a theoretical question. While many of us have been distracted by the Chiefs in a big winter storm, Kansas Governor Laura Kelly is trying to get lawmakers to approve the largest tax incentive in state history to lure a company they refuse to name or the place where it will be located.
This mega project will bring in $4 billion of new investment to our state, create 4,000 permanent jobs with an average wage of $50,000. This project is so large, there is no existing 3 million square foot building in Kansas.
I find it interesting that you come to us asking for over $1 billion and you can't disclose what county, you can't disclose what company.
Despite the lack of details, the Kansas Senate has already green-lighted up to $1 billion in tax incentives to the mystery company that is promising to build the largest building in Kansas in a mystery location. Now it's up to the Kansas House to weigh in. But I'm curious, if this was in Kansas City and Mayor Lucas was asking for this, Eric Wesson, what would the response be?
A lot of people would call it like, who is this? Where's our taxpayer money going? So a lot of people would more than likely have some complaints about it.
And I know the Star editorial board would be hot under the collar, just like you were, Dave Helling, when they were looking for a developer and giving it to Burns and McDonnell originally for the new look KCI. Transparency, you were shouting out.
Yes, and we've written about it, and I have written about it about a week ago, and we said that the Kansas legislature should not proceed with anything like this package until it has a firm understanding of who's involved, what the costs are, and what the benefits might be, pro or con, for this project years down the line, Nick. There is no way the legislature should approve this deal until the public knows more about what's going on.
The only thing we know right now, Michael Mahoney, because the state has already said this, the governor's office says it's not Boeing, that's not the company, and the second state that is vying for this company is not going to be the state of Missouri. But do we have any hints whatsoever of what major company may be coming here?
No, I don't think we do, but I personally don't think this is a done deal or anything close to it. So Kansas is putting together a package. I'm not sure that they've got the deal yet.
Just quickly, I was told by one person familiar with the discussions that the other state is Oklahoma. And there is great frustration among some development officials that they can't be more forthcoming here because they understand the problem, which is the public is not going to write a blank check unless it understands a little bit more about what's going on.
I did notice 2 years ago when we had the huge effort to be trying to win the headquarters, the second headquarters of Amazon, Lisa, that actually was going to go to New York. They really rebuffed that, so they ended up removing themselves from that deal. And the argument was that these companies, they may promise all these jobs, but they never deliver on them. Is that the same argument here?
I think there's a legitimate concern there. When you think of the ripple effects that this brings to a city like Amazon, for example, yes, did it create jobs in the city where it started, but it also sent, home values and rents skyrocketing and displaced residents. So there's all of these ripple effects to consider.
And one of the things that I thought about, and one of our Kansas readers called me about the other day, was Cerner. And, you know, that was a big corporation. They spent all that money building that place out there for them. And then several years afterwards, they're gone. And so the theory is from some of our readers is that they'll give these corporations this money. They'll come in, they'll get the tips, the incentives, they'll stay a little while, and then they'll go.
It's not just Washington, D.C. that's filled with high-stakes political dramas as the country prepares for a brutal Supreme Court confirmation battle. Look no further than our own backyard for contentious, bitter and polarizing confirmation hearings. Look at these scenes this week from Jefferson City. This is outside the confirmation hearing for Missouri Health Director Don Caroff. In fact, it got so ugly, he has removed himself from consideration and has resigned. What's interesting here is that he was picked by Republican Governor Mike Parson. The legislature is controlled by Republicans. What did he do so terribly wrong, Lisa?
This whole situation was just, I mean, it was wild to see play out. The objections to Don Caroff were that he supported or encouraged Missourians to get the vaccine. There were allegations thrown out that he was supportive of mask and vaccine mandates. Both the governor and Caroff himself denied that. But this really, I mean, it was an example of truly how splintered politics and state house governance has become, even among the Republican Party, with the governor issuing a vehement response, chastising these lawmakers for holding up this confirmation. And this is infighting within the Republican Party, which has been signaled since the beginning of the session.
Michael.
Well, Lisa's exactly right on that. You've got three branches now in the state Senate of Missouri. There are the hard right Republicans. There are more conventional Republicans, which hold the controlling factor in terms of votes right now. And then there are 10 Democrats. The hard right conservatives basically killed Caroff's nomination with their resistance. They are also the folks that are pushing for a 7-1 redistricting map. They're going to be the folks that tried to complicate Medicaid funding last year during a special session. They're also going to probably try to challenge Medicaid expansion funding this session.
If the Conservative caucus was successful then in ditching the Missouri Health Director in his confirmation hearing, Eric, what about, as Michael points out, could they be successful in gerrymandering Kansas City Congressman Emanuel Cleaver's seat?
Yeah, they could, but it's not likely to happen. There could be another kind of a circus down there in the legislature with that. I don't think they will. I think he's got some support on the other side of the aisle to keep his seat intact. But we'll wait and see. Today is one thing. Tomorrow it might be. This afternoon it might be something totally different.
In Kansas, lawmakers were successful in pushing through new congressional maps that move Lawrence into the same district as western Kansas and cuts Wyandotte County in half, making it tougher for Congresswoman Sharice Davids to win re-election. While much of the talk this week has been about what will Governor Laura Kelly do, will she veto it or not? Will lawmakers have the votes to override her if she does? At this point, will this ultimately, Dave Helling, now just be settled in court?
Well, we'll see. I think everyone assumes that Governor Kelly will veto this map, in part because of the changes, Nick, in the 3rd District, but also putting Lawrence in the 1st District has just really infuriated a lot of people in Lawrence. And that is a Democratic stronghold, as you know. So it's likely she'll veto it, and then we'll see if they have the votes. It does not appear now that they do, but that could change for an override. If it is overridden, then yes, I do think that there will be an effort in court, as there was 10 years ago when the map was drawn up, and we'll see how the judges rule.
But on what grounds, though, Lisa, could that be challenged in court? We know, for instance, there is a requirement based on that census, when you do a population changes, that you can't have the same district anymore. There has to be a shift of people out of that district. There's too many people. So what's wrong with making this move?
I think because it dilutes and it dissects Kansas City, Kansas, particularly where there is a higher concentration of minority, Black, and Hispanic voters. And so by splitting them up into different districts, you can make the argument that you're disenfranchising those voters.
Michael.
There are 3 guidelines in redistricting. They want districts to be compact, they want them to be contiguous, and they want them to have communities of interest. And that is where I think the legal challenge may be about communities of interest, that Lawrence, Kansas has little, if anything, in common with Western Kansas, other than the fact that they're in the same state, literally in different regions. In fact, the ACLU of Kansas this past week sent a letter to the governor urging her to veto that. And I took that as a flag that, this may end up in court.
Now, over the weekend, the first big forum was held to gauge the public's views about what they want in the next police chief in Kansas City. Remarkably, while there were about a dozen stories saying the event was happening, I couldn't find one news account about what happened. Did it actually take place? And what, if anything, did we learn, Eric?
I have no idea.
But Nick, we should be clear that one of the reasons it's difficult to get the public enthusiastic about this effort is because it isn't clear who's going to pick the next chief or what role the public will play. Of course, under the law, it will be the police board who will pick the replacement for Rick Smith. And the police board can simply ignore what the public wants. They're not elected, they're appointed. So the public input is really meaningless for the board, typically, or could be. And so it's hard to get the public interested in going out on a winter's day to talk about a chief when they know they may play no role at all in picking who that next person might be.
Michael.
I think this Urban League public hearing this weekend is going to draw some interest. I think it's also going to be paid attention to. I cannot believe that the Kansas City Board of Police Commissioners would be as tone deaf as Dave fears in terms of simply ignoring what the people of Kansas City want to see in the new police chief. If they are, then woe be unto all of us.
Now, while many of us, of course, were focused on the chiefs this week and all of the disruption that took place with the snowstorm, we had 6 homicides in 1 week. Kansas City's murder rate already tracking higher than last year, Lisa. Is there a sense of urgency now from the Board of Police Commissioners to start, collecting resumes, getting this hiring process working?
I have not heard, and to Dave's point, we have not heard a public plan for how this process will play out yet. We haven't heard a lot from current Chief Rick Smith in the first part of the year. I imagine he's just putting his head down, trying to stay out of the spotlight and work on police budget issues.
I think the public is so disengaged and disenfranchised with the police department. You know, like you mentioned earlier, Nick, we've had 6 homicides this past week. Where's the police chief? When you watch the Board of Police Commissioners meeting, it's like a love fest. I expect them to come down from the podium and start hugging each other because they're not addressing the issues that are really important. They talk about the budget, they talk about this and that, but mothers are burying their children. And it doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency for a plan. Well, at least we don't have as many as we had last year. You know, that's not the mindset that people want to hear.
From picking a new police chief to picking a new leader to run Johnson County, Ed Eilert is calling it quits after more than 20 years leading Johnson County government. Eilert officially announced this week he will not seek re-election this year. And in keeping with his low-key style, Eilert didn't hold any grand press conferences, but chose to share the news more quietly in an email to county staff. Eilert is now 82 years old. He's been in the public eye for 40 years. Remember, he was first elected mayor of Overland Park in 1981. What's his biggest accomplishment, Dave?
Well, he oversaw impressive growth in Overland Park. I'll remember him for his kind of prickly approach to the bi-state tax. You remember when Kansas City and Johnson County and Jackson County decided on raising the sales tax to save Union Station. Ed Eilert was sort of outside of that, complaining about the process. He was not in favor of bi-state too, as you'll recall. And he also ran for Congress. And yet, in some ways, his own Republican Party sort of moved to the right of where he was. I think he's been an impressive leader in Johnson County, and he'll be missed.
So what happens now? 4 candidates have already entered the race to succeed him. Former Kansas Insurance Commissioner Ken Selzer wants to succeed Eilert. So does Roland Park Mayor Mike Kelly and 2 sitting county commissioners, Charlotte O'Hara and Shirley Allenbrand. Are we about to see a major shift in the direction of Johnson County as a result of what happens this year, Michael?
I think it's possible. I don't know if it's going to happen. There are 4 people who are already running campaigns. And some of them are very conservative candidates. Some of them are not very conservative candidates. I suspect they move to the right.
Some of them, though, are actually downright progressive, wouldn't you say? Dave, one of the candidates, Mike Kelly, is one of the biggest champions of climate change action in the entire metropolitan area, and has been one of the fastest moving mayors in our metro about making sure we have tighter COVID restrictions, masks, and so on.
So when Michael says it's moving to the right, it'll be a fascinating thing to watch in 2022 to see whether the more progressive northern part of the county prevails in the county election, or whether the votes in Olathe and southern areas, Leawood, south of 435, predominate in the county. It's a fascinating dynamic.
And that vote actually taking place less than 6 months ago, because that primary will be in the first week of August. Lots of outrage a few months ago when Kevin Strickland was released from prison after spending more than 40 years in a Missouri penitentiary for a crime he didn't commit. And adding insult to injury, he received not a dime from the state for the years he lost behind bars. Now this week, the Missouri House debating 2 bills to expand compensation for wrongfully incarcerated prisoners. Right now, Missouri law only allows payments to ex-prisoners exonerated through DNA evidence. These latest measures would expand eligibility to those exonerated through other means. But would it help Strickland, or would it only help future exonerees, Eric?
It would probably help future exonerees. I don't think they could go back and make it retroactive for anybody. But, one of the things that I check in with Kevin frequently just to see how he's doing, because it's been a big transition for him. And I think a lot of things have overwhelmed him in coming from being incarcerated back out to a free world.
I saw a story on KCUR News that he wasn't taking to freedom too well.
I think the transition has been incredibly difficult. When you're guilty and you're released from prison, there are all of these institutions, all of these networks to help people transition to life on the outside, and those structures don't really exist for when you're exonerated. But simple things, as far as, when he went inside, we didn't have smartphones. And so he said he got a smartphone and it took him a week to learn how to answer it.
And he had to put a block on his phone to keep people from texting him and calling him. So now with his phone, he can only make outgoing calls. But Lisa is right. When you're incarcerated, you get 3 pair of underwear. So when you go take a shower every day, you take your underwear to the shower with you and wash it out. Socks, underwear, so forth and so on. And so he and I were joking one day when we were talking, and I said, so are you still taking your underwear to the shower with you? And he laughed and he said, yeah, and I walk by the washer and dryer, but I don't know how to use it. It's a huge transition. And for somebody that was locked up that long, it's a heck of a transition being out in the free world.
Ever watch the popular Netflix series Ozark? It's supposed to be set in Missouri's Lake of the Ozark, but it's actually filmed around Atlanta. A generous tax incentive program in Georgia has made it a new hub for movie makers. Missouri doesn't offer any incentives to filmmakers. Now, lawmakers in Missouri are considering restoring those tax incentives in order to get a bigger slice of the movie action. A bill debated this week in Jefferson City would provide filmmakers a tax credit of up to 20% of the expenses associated with their project. The incentive would also be extended to TV and streaming service producers willing to stage their episodic binge-watching series in the state. I can see why it would be attractive to set movies about Missouri in Missouri, Dave. So what would be the objection to this bill?
Well, it would be a subsidy for an industry that makes hundreds of millions of dollars in most cases. And the benefits to the state of Missouri would be at least or arguably very ephemeral. I mean, yeah, it would be great to have a Kansas City skyline shot in a movie, but how much benefit that really provides to a city like Kansas City or St. Louis or the Ozarks or any other place is certainly open to debate.
I should point out, by the way, that Kansas doesn't have also a filmmaking tax credit program of its own. But Lisa, would another objection be that, hey, these filmmakers are the very people who might be doing more to sneer and mock these Republican lawmakers, and now they're asking for money from me?
There may be an element of that. It's hard to see the direct the direct and immediate benefit. One, maybe the only exception I can think of was in Kansas City when Queer Eye was here for a whole season, in which case that put Kansas City on display for an entire season on a repeated basis and really did make it look very attractive. But I think those examples are harder to achieve.
To Lisa's point, Queer Eye was here for a year and Kansas City was on the map. Can we really say today that Kansas City is appreciably different because Queer Eye was here? That's a very different question, and it is much more open. And that's why things like film tax credits are always difficult to get past the bar.
Last week, as we were hosting airport leaders on the program, Kansas City, Kansas was playing host to Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who was vowing to make the largest investment in Kansas City since the Eisenhower administration, days after a bridge collapses in Pittsburgh. The Biden administration vowing to fix every one of America's deficient bridges. We're sending the money now, the president says. Really? At last count, more than 1,200 Kansas bridges are listed in poor condition. In Missouri, more than 2,200 bridges are classified as structurally deficient. And every one of these is going to be fixed up, Michael?
Not every one of them, but a lot of them will be. And the Parson administration has already started a state plan to address some of that stuff.
It was a big week for infrastructure last week, with civic leaders also releasing a new vision for downtown that includes a new home for the Royals, turning the crumbling Barney Alice Plaza parking garage into a destination green space, and putting a lid over the highway that cuts in half the downtown area to make it a big interactive park. There's a lot going on here. The mayor says these are cool projects, but the big question is, how are we going to pay for them? If that's the case, when all the talk dies down, which project, Dave, has the best chance of actually happening?
Well, I think Barney Alice Plaza is going to happen because I think it is crumbling and the parking garage is such an integral part of that part of the community that there will be some movement at some point. But remember, Nick, that's $100 million plus. The stadium, God knows how much that's going to cost. Covering the south part of the loop would be expensive. Repurposing the north part of the loop would cost a lot of money. I wrote our editorial about this. There are some very, very smart things in this plan by the Downtown Council that don't cost a lot of money, including improving neighborhoods, planting trees, putting up flower baskets. When you get into the big ticket items, though, the mayor is exactly right. Paying for it is the real question, and it isn't clear how that's going to happen.
So when the talk is over, Lisa, what was most likely to be done, do you think?
I think probably the mayor would be most excited about some of the efforts to increase affordable housing and help people in the surrounding neighborhoods invest and buy homes and build wealth and really connect downtown, make it, rather than this vertical north-south corridor, to really extend it east and west and inclusive of those neighborhoods around downtown.
Eric Wesson, I did see that civic leaders said, this was the time to make downtown more equitable, but other than holding their press conference at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, how else was this plan equitable?
See, Nick, we right here. We still can't get 3 blocks developed on 18th Street. And it's just mind-boggling when you look at it from Purcell to Vine, from Vine to Highland, Highland to Woodland. 3 blocks. And we still can't get those blocks developed. And nobody mentioned anything about 18th and Vine, the Jazz District, which is a part of Kansas City.
And it isn't as if, Nick, that downtown hasn't been the beneficiary of public money. I mean, Convention Hotel, Performing Arts Center, Sprint, the T-Mobile Center, Power and Light District, the new office building going up. I mean, the streetcar. Yes. I mean, the amount of money that's been spent on downtown has been enormous. To say, hey, we need to spend another $1 billion or so on downtown baseball and other things is going to be a real interesting discussion.
But when you wrote that editorial, I saw all that pushback the editorial board got for writing that, saying we can do both.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we can invest in downtown and we can do those other things at the same time, Dave.
Well, the money is not unlimited, and there are other parts of this community who lack resources. Our friend Eric Wesson just mentioned one, but there are places farther south, farther east that still need help. And the idea of spending another $1 billion on public amenities downtown is going to be a difficult political sell.
When you put a program like this together every week, you can't get to every story making the headlines. We do try. What was the big local story we missed? A painful week as Kansas City's Super Bowl journey comes to an abrupt end.
I'm kind of at a loss for words.
And a winter snowstorm doesn't do anything to improve the mood. It was a week that saw former Kansas Senator and presidential candidate Bob Dole finally laid to rest in a private ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. Are we about to reopen that more than 30-year-old explosion case that killed 6 Kansas City firefighters? Another major retailer closes on the Country Club Plaza. Michael Kors shuts down after a decade. A vandalized historic marker that stood outside the childhood home in Georgia of baseball legend Jackie Robinson is now headed to Kansas City. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum says the bullet-riddled sign will serve as a reminder of the racial issues that America still faces today. Guess what else is coming? Margaritaville, the new resort, will be built on the site of the former Schlitterbahn Water Park. And is SeaWorld coming to KC? The world's best-known marine life park may be the new owners of Worlds of Fun. SeaWorld making a more than $3 billion bid for Worlds of Fun parent company, Cedar Fair. Alrighty, Lisa, did you pick one of those stories or something completely different?
This may be the first show I've ever been on where we haven't had a segment on COVID. And I think that is notable. Health experts this week said that we may have reached and passed the peak of Omicron. That said, cases are still higher than they were at the beginning of the pandemic. They're warning people not to let your guard down yet, but we may have just a tiny, tiny bit of good news about COVID-19.
Eric.
I said, the Chiefs losing. That was heartbreaking. My son said, take all our Chiefs stuff out and put it in a trash bag and throw it out. No, but I picked the Chiefs.
Michael Mahoney.
My pick is going to be the potential reexamination of the firefighters' explosion from 1988. I think that case and the possible reexamination of who did it might be in the near future.
Dave.
The fighting over 18th and Vine has not gone away. And in fact, the city's administration is at some odds with Melissa Robinson and Brandon Ellington on development plans for that area. 18th and Vine remains an important focus for the people of Kansas City, and there is still not general agreement on what can and should be done down there.
And on that, we will say our week has been reviewed thanks to KCUR's Lisa Rodriguez, the Cole's Eric Wesson, still keeping his toe in at Channel 9, Michael Mahoney, and from the pages of your Kansas City Star, Dave Helling. And I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at Kansas City PBS, be well, keep calm, and carry on.